Hello, hello!
Hey, hey!
Welcome back to another episode of ISBN-Depth. We're going to be covering haunted histories and spooky stories and scary movies and all the things I don't like. So I am Sam, and that is Launa. So we're going to move up into the upcoming events, so what's going on at your local libraries?
Yes, so the very first thing is one that I know is very popular around here, and that is our literary pumpkin painting contest. That's a mouthful.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah. So that will be from October 10th through the 20th. You need to drop off any painted pumpkins by Monday, October 10th, and that's from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then they will be on display and will be judged between the 10th and the 20th. And then Friday, the 21st, I believe, is going to be the official day of judging where they will announce the winners by popular vote. So voting for that, $1 gets you 2 votes. So tell all your grandparents, tell all of your family members, come vote for
all
your
the extended family.
Yes, all the extended family. Tell them to, it's that time of year, get out $1 and go vote for your child.
And if you give your librarians $2, we'll put $1 in towards voting for you.
Yes. Absolutely. And also, for the judging categories, we have 1st through 3rd grade, 4th through 6th grade, 7th through 9th, and then we also have a families judging category.
Oh, how heartwarming for spooky season. All right, so, I wonder why they don't carve it. Probably because of the smell and safety.
I wouldn't want to walk by that every day, personally, just being here on a daily basis.
You get pumpkins sitting in the lobby for like 10 days, and people could carve them at various, paint them, paint them. So, on October 15th, Friends of the Library is having another market. It's going to be in our large, backyard,
back parking lot.
Parking lot.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the opposite of a yard. It's paved. It's got lines. Your cars go there. Anyway, so it's going to be the Books, Baked Goods, and Treasures. So you can stop by the circulation desk anytime from now because this will be at the beginning of the month. Yep. Anyway, from, now to the 14th, and you can pay us $20 per parking spot. That money has to be in cash. It is non-refundable, so if it rains, sorry, it goes to a really good cause.
Yes, it does.
And they don't redo it either. So if we miss it out because of weather, we miss it out because of weather, unfortunately. As far as I know, there's not any restrictions when it comes to what you can sell. Some people are doing lemonade. I think a church group is going to hand out freebies. And I've heard people talk about jam. Some people just use it for yard selling. So whatever you can think of, as long as it's legal. Please be legal. The police station is right across the street, as a friendly reminder.
You will be caught. And that does go along with October being National Friends of the Library Week. So that's going to be from October 16th through the 22nd. And to celebrate that, we did want to give you guys a little reminder that we do have a Friends of the Library bookstore here at KFL.
And the other branches have sales periodically, like Seymour just had their sale in September.
I believe so.
In September. Yep. So, but it's staffed by people who volunteer their time. They even pay a due to even show hey, we really like the library. So what the Friends of the Library do is they support the library. There basically are unspoken, unseen patrons, or not patrons as in you come and visit, but patronage is in the Roman way, I guess. Yeah. But they do great things. They run the bookstore up here. They're always constantly busy. If you drop off books, are sorting through it, and of course they're the ones who put together the largest fundraisers. They were telling us earlier, Seymour's Friends of the Library, what was it, $100,000 they fundraised or something? I
think it was either a little less or close to.
Yeah, and they Friends of the Library fundraised for that building, so they do remarkable things, and I'm sure they're getting up ideas how to fundraise for Kodak when that new building is designed. So and we do get a lot of questions. A lot of people come up to our 3rd floor where the bookstore is and automatically assume it's our makerspace area. So just a little PSA, if you are coming in and looking for the Friends of the Library bookstore, it is a little hard to find as long as the door is closed. So it's actually when you get off the elevator immediately to your left, kind of where the emergency exit is. That's where you'll find the door. It has a Scrabble logo on it with their hours. And if you ever come by and it's closed, just walk over to Makerspace or the History Center. We'd be happy to let you guys in and check it out. And the Friends of the Library mostly deal in cash.
Yes.
A cash or a check, you'll never be able to pay a card for something. So that's why the Friends Market, it's in cash.
Yep.
And when you buy in the bookstore, it's in cash. So, but yeah, please feel free. And if you see a friend volunteering in the library bookstore, or you know one, or you are one, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We could not do anything here without you guys, honestly. You guys really do help out in ways that aren't always appreciated.
Unsung heroes.
Yes,
for sure.
Absolutely.
And then so the last kind of big event we have going on for October is the it's a kind of like a mash of two things. Of course, we always have Halloween. Who doesn't love free candy? And but it's the 75th anniversary of Roswell. It was this July, if you'll remember from our other podcast. So we're celebrating aliens during October. So an alien invasion. Come dressed up in the costumes and get candy. It's a family event. You don't have to dress as aliens, but it is encouraged.
It is encouraged. I know we're having a fun time trying to figure out what we should do.
I think, what were you talking? You were going to do the Toy Story alien?
I mean, why not?
I want to
just brings me back to my childhood, sitting there with the claw, just, coming
the claw. I have been chosen.
Yes, exactly.
And then we volunteered Ben to do Men in Black.
We'll see if that happens. We're voting for it.
We both ran to do Men in Black. He's just looking at us like, what? Anyway, so yeah, free candy.
Yep.
October 31st. Be there or be
scared. I don't know. Anyways, I guess we can go ahead and go on into the main topic of our podcast today, which is haunted histories, and I will start us off with ETSU, also known as East Tennessee State University. I did not realize it until I was doing some of the research, but it's actually pretty well known for its little haunted rumors and histories. And the one I found most fascinating was Marble Boy, which is just already perfect, because who doesn't want to hear about a ghost named Marble Boy? So apparently Marble Boy, whenever Lucille Clement Hall was being manufactured, was playing with a handful of marbles, and then he ended up falling down an elevator shaft, dropping the marbles, and from that point on, it is said that if you're staying in Clement Hall and you hear the sound of marbles dropping on the floor above you, that is the Marble Boy. And if you hear it from a different hall, it is because he has visited his best friend, Sink Girl, who apparently is known for turning off faucets randomly throughout the buildings.
So it sounds like Marble Boy is an OSHA violation, and Sink Girl's just really concerned about water conservation.
I mean,
I can't take him seriously.
But you never know. And it does say that their very first president, I think, what was his name? Sidney Gilbreth, which is already a wonderful name to me. It says that you can see his apparition walking around the buildings and doing very resourceful things. Apparently people will see his apparition closing windows that were left open or turning off lights in classrooms that aren't being used.
So there's no retirement.
There is no retirement, and also all of ETSU's ghosts just seem to be very helpful.
They do. They all seem except for Marble Boy.
Except for Marble Boy, he's a little bit of a troublemaker. But I'll give him a pass, because, me and Seton Girl, I feel like we'd be super close.
But is Marble Boy a troublemaker? He just fell.
True, it's not his fault.
It's his parents' fault.
Probably.
So our next section's on Elkmont. I actually, fun fact, went there one time on a date, and it was real fun. It's up in the national park. When I went, there was a few dilapidated, really cold, creepy buildings, which is, I think, one of my friend at the time took me there, because I was like, I like creepy old decaying things. I don't care for ghost stories, but I thought Elkmont was really cool. So, and Elkmont's not so much a ghost story thing. There probably are ghosts there. Because everything creepy seems to, even if there's not a ghost there, someone's going to put a ghost there. Yeah. So anyway, in the national park in 1934, they gave the people of Elkmont a choice. They could either sell their cabin and move, or they could sell their cabin for a lesser price and stay there till they died, and then it would go back to the park. Well, it belonged to the park anyway, but, they could still stay there. Yeah. And it was kind of like where the rich people went to, it was designed for the wealthy to go stay in their cabins. From what I heard, it was never overly successful.
Yeah, and I do know, like, the country club they had there, I think for a time seemed to boom, but I think...
not very long.
Yeah, it was very short-lived, it seemed like.
So, by 1992, most people had, abandoned it, the leases were up, and there's about 70 buildings left, and, of course, like, who's going to take care of those buildings? People are going to get hurt, so the park demolished almost all of them. I think they left about 19 of those buildings up.
Yeah.
So, not really like, ghost story, but it's really creepy. I remember I went to this one building and there was just like a bathtub, like a clawfoot bathtub.
I think I've seen the pictures of that.
And I want to say my friend was like, yeah, there's a ghost story around that, but obviously I don't remember it.
Well, I think you're right. I think people tend to see something that is kind of dilapidated and then just kind of create something out of it, which I mean is great. People will go and visit that all day long. Like I think people are super fascinated with like paranormal activity. Like, have you ever watched the BuzzFeed Unsolved Mysteries? Oh my gosh.
I've seen the memes. I've connected the dots. You connected anything.
I used to watch those all the time. I still do every now and then, but I'm pretty sure like for a couple of years I've seen like every single one.
This is my bridge, Goat Man.
Goat Man, I'm dancing on your bridge. It's my bridge now.
Yes, that was my favorite. That and Mothman. Like, those guys just crack me up. So I think it is something that it attracts, tourists, and it does attract people. Yeah. So I can understand, like, making it a bigger deal than it actually was.
Which one was the scaredy cat and which one was the skeptic?
Oh, gosh.
Was it Ryan?
Ryan was the scaredy cat.
Okay.
And Shane. Thank you, Ben. Shane was the skeptic.
I like Shane.
Yeah.
I don't think I could be as brave as Shane. I like Shane.
And there was some stuff where I was like, I don't know if I would ever say that. Even if it doesn't exist. I don't care. Like, that is really testing some spirits.
He's still alive, so...
He is. We'll see for how long. Hopefully forever, but...
Hopefully forever. He got cursed to live for forever. What do we have next?
I love
Wheatland
it.
Plantation.
Yes, and I knew of Wheatland's Plantation
Never
in Boyd's
heard of it.
Creek. I just didn't really know like much about it. I just knew the name. So apparently, it was called Wheatlands because it obviously produced a very big wheat crop every year. So it was actually the grounds there were used in the Revolutionary and Civil War battles, which I thought was pretty interesting, and that in itself would probably create quite a bit of paranormal, kind of some odd energy. But then I started to look into it more, and apparently there were 70 murders and deaths within the walls of the plantation itself, and about 28 Cherokee people were actually killed on the grounds and then put into a mass grave behind the house on the plantation, and that in itself would just terrify me. But apparently when you walk into the parlor, there's actually like blood stains in the floor. So I can just tell that I would never go in there ever.
Mojo.
Yes, exactly.
Let's see. Greenbrier Restaurant. Have eat there. Don't remember much about it. I remember like looking out and there's a really pretty view of like the forests and stuff, but as far as the food, don't really remember too much. And I think it's changed hands a couple times since I've been up there, but the restaurant itself still going. But the story there is, and they're well known to be haunted, and they've I think even had investigations and stuff out there and whatnot. But there was a woman named Lydia, and she was going to get married. Well, on the day of her wedding, her beau did not show up, and so she hung herself. And a few days later, they found her beau in the mountains, and he was torn up by a mountain lion. And some people say it was Lydia who did it, and some people say it was a mountain lion. So, either way, it's kind of tragic, and so she's known to haunt around. Like, multiple people who've owned it have said they've seen her, or, they've, I think someone even caught a picture of her on camera. And I think there's another ghost that haunts there, too, but Lydia's the most famous one.
Yeah, I do think...
It's a gentleman, but I don't remember much about his story.
Yeah, and I know that some people have reported, like, just, like, food flying off of, like, counters and stuff randomly.
Or cold spots.
Yeah, cold spots.
I think what I've heard most is people, like, they turn and they see a blur and then they look to focus on it and there's nothing there, but...
Yeah, which, that to me just sounds like my awful vision. If I don't have my glasses on, I probably see quite a few of those. But anyways... So we also have two more. So the next one's pretty short, but I also think it would probably be the most creepy if I ever came across it. And that is Lucy at the Roaring Forks Motor Nature Trail. So apparently Lucy, some people say she was like a young woman, some people say she was a younger girl, but in the early 1900s, her family's cabin burnt down and she died in the fire. Mm-hmm. And so some people claim that if you're driving or hiking or whatever along that trail, that you will see Lucy stop you and ask you for a ride.
I wonder what happens if she gets in.
I don't know, but it reminds me of an episode of Supernatural.
Was the hook guy?
No,
the white women.
Yes.
It was like in season 1 or something.
Yes, it was very early on in Supernatural, and that to me was just terrifying when I watched it, because I'm not a huge horror person anyways. I'm easily scared. So...
Do you remember the episode where was it the Bloody Mary episode with all the glass mirrors and stuff?
I think so.
I think someone did, they busted so many mirrors, and I think someone did, how many years they would have been cursed. And it was a lot of years because how many mirrors, how many years do you get cursed for breaking a mirror?
I have
13
no clue.
Something, 7? It's one of those numbers. So
yeah, but yeah, and then the last story was actually Cades Cove, which I know Cades Cove has several, but I thought
Cades Cove's kind of big. So
yeah, it is. I know there's an old church up there that's kind of known for its ghost stories, but I came across this one that I actually just thought was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. So this woman, I couldn't remember her name, but her husband's name was Basil. So her and her husband Basil lived out in Cades Cove.
Basil?
It may have been Basil. I'm going to say Basil because it reminds me of the restaurant Thai Basil, so that's my favorite. But anyways, so she loved to crochet and knit, but she was terrified of lightning striking metal, to the point where she wouldn't even sit outside and crochet with a metal needle if it was storming or about to storm. And she also refused to own a metal bed frame.
Okay.
So she forced her husband to stay with an old wooden frame, and she had come across one of his old red flannel shirts one day, and they had been wearing it. He had worn it whenever they were in a really big fight, but she loved the pattern of it. Mm-hmm. So she cut it into pieces and turned it into one of her favorite quilts, and she called it the cussing cover because he had worn it during a fight where they basically just,
cussed at each other.
And so later on, she got severely sick, and she basically knew she was going to die, didn't have much time left, and gave Basil permission to remarry once she died. Mm-hmm. But she gave 2 rules. And one was that he could not sell any of her quilts. Mm-hmm. And the second one was that he could not put any quilt that she made on a metal bed frame. And so, as the story goes, he did remarry. The wife was a little bit on the heavier side. The wooden bed frame just wasn't quite enough support for both of them. And so she wore him down, finally got a metal bed frame. And then she got super cold one night, and he was like, okay, well, we'll just use this one. And it was the cussing cover. Mm-hmm. And apparently that night she heard lightning strike, and when she woke up, his other wife was standing in front of her, cussing her out. And then she still did not listen, did not take it off the bed. And the next night, same thing happened, except when lightning struck the ground.
Traveled up the bed frame?
It must have traveled up the bed frame or something. Either that or it was just the wife, being a little spooky. But Basil's new wife woke up, and Basil was on the ground, burnt to a crisp.
So she got left with all the quilts.
Yes, she got left with all the quilts and all the bad karma that went along with it.
That sounds vaguely familiar. I might have heard that once as a kid.
Yeah. So, and I think some people say that they tried to get rid of the cussing cover. Mm-hmm. So they were like, if you ever come across a quilt over in Cades Cove at a store with pieces of, red flannel sewn into it, just be weary.
Don't do it.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Speaking of ladies who are about to die, that reminds me of one of my favorite ghost stories.
Oh my gosh.
Lana didn't know about this
Sam is the queen of segues, if you guys did not know that already.
I'm the queen of segues. So there was this is why I don't like horror books, I think, because when I was a kid, this scarred me tenderly. So in this book called In a Dark, Dark Room and Other Scary Stories, there is a story called The Green Ribbon, and it's about a girl named Ginny. And she always wore a green ribbon around her neck. And she meets this guy named Alfred, and they grew up together, and he loves her, and so they get married. And he always asks her, he's like, why do you wear that ribbon around your neck? And she was like, well, I'll tell you later. And, you know, they get married, and then he asks again. She goes, I'll tell you at the right time. And then she gets sick, and she's dying. And he's like, okay. Or, well, he doesn't have, he's a little better than that to be like, hey, why do you wear that green ribbon?
Yeah.
But she's like, okay, now you can find out why I wear the green ribbon. And he pulls off the green ribbon, and her head falls off. And I don't know, to little 5-year-old Sam, that was like the most impressionable thing. And then I don't think it helped that when I went over to a friend's house when I was probably like 7 or 8, she loved horror movies, and we watched The Grudge 2 and Chainsaw Massacre. So at a very young age, I said, no thank you, never again. Anyway, so we do have In a Dark, Dark Room in the children's section.
Yeah, be a little cautious on that one, you know, if it scarred precious little 5-year-old Sam's mind. But at the same time, like, I've never been a fan either, but I can't remember anything like really scarring me for life. Although I will say I love the cartoon Anastasia, but the villain in Anastasia, yes. But he, like, his head, you know, would just kind of like twist and turn. Yeah. That always did creep me out. And there's also
like the bugs.
Yeah.
I could have done without that whole musical portion.
True. Very true. That is a very creepy part. Like, his fingers are just like dancing and stuff. I don't know. It's weird. But with that being said, like, I'm not a huge horror person, and I guess that's probably why my recommendations aren't exactly horror, you know?
Yeah, same. So we scraped up a couple between us.
Yeah, we did.
I picked the manga because I'm a nerd, and so we've got like Black Butler, which is basically a kid makes a deal with a devil. I wouldn't say the devil, but a devil. And then Tokyo Ghoul, which is about like ghouls that are cannibalistic. Oh my gosh. But yeah, they eat like human flesh. So it's a good, I watched the first season of the anime. It's really good. What else do we have? Holic, which is one of my favorites. It's actually spelled like XXX Holic. The Japanese like throwing random X's into things, and they're silent.
Yeah, like Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter x Hunter, yeah. Spy Family. Yeah, they'll just throw X in just because it looks good. But that one's not so much like horror. They do have like a couple like kind of spooky things, and it's more of like be careful what you wish for, which is interesting because the whole shop that they deal in is a shop of wishes. So you go and make a wish, and you have to make a payment for that wish, and sometimes it turns out good, and most of the time though it's a moral kind of lesson and erring on the spooky side. And then Phantom Tales of the Night, we have 1 volume downstairs of that. That one was really cool. So that one, like Holic, deals in a trade, but this one's you're supposed to tell the innkeeper a secret, and that one has some kind of body horror to it, so that's why it's a no-go for me. I think that's probably why I don't do Junji Ito either, because it's kind of tends to be on the body horror, and I think that's even creepier than regular horror. And then there's a series I read growing up by Carrie Ryan. It's a YA series. There's like 3 books in the series. The first one's The Forest of Hands and Teeth, and I was a very big zombie I guess zombies I think are the horror thing I accept, though I will watch them with my fingers covering face. And one of my favorite video games to play with my brothers was like Left 4 Dead, which was about zombies. But I had to play it with other people in the room with the lights on in the middle of the day. I tried to play it once on my own, and even though I knew the map and everything, it's scared, too many jump scares. So, but little Sam in high school, little Sam's still very little, but littler Sam was really into zombies during middle school and high school, and that was when I read the Forest of Hands and Teeth series.
Yeah, I'm a big jump scare person. I actually think I was up here working in Makerspace yesterday, and I had a little student come up to me and ask me a question, but I was all alone up there for like an hour before that, and it scared the living daylight out of me to have this little girl just say my name out of nowhere up there shelving alone. So jump scares are like my kryptonite. It's awful. But with that said, I did kind of find a few like more like thriller side or more like gothic literature horror type recommendations. So I do have Poe Stories and Poems. It's kind of a graphic novel adaptation of some of his more well-known poems.
The Raven, Telltale Heart.
Exactly. And so I did read through it, and I really did like the graphics of it. I thought it was super interesting, and I think it's a great way because sometimes younger kids can read it and it's a little dense, and you don't fully get that horror aspect unless you see it sometimes. So I did think that was super cool. And I do really like A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2. It's the only horror movie, which it's not like super, super scary anyways. Mm-hmm. It is mainly jump scares, but it is the only horror stuff that I've watched and actually like enjoyed. Like I wouldn't turn it away if it came on the TV type of movie.
I got that confused with Bird Box for a second because they both kind of, because they're both...
No, I tried watching Bird Box and I couldn't.
Oh, I watched Bird Box.
Yeah,
it was very dumb.
I was just, yeah, no, I couldn't do it. Another one that I did like, it's also a YA novel, is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. And the sequel to that, I think One of Us is next. We have them both here.
So that more like a whodunit?
It is, yeah. It's definitely more like mystery, but it is a little bit of thriller thrown in there. But the first book was super, super good, or at least I thought it was. The second one wasn't quite as good for me, but I would recommend the first one, at least to anyone. So
I don't know why that reminded me of something. Did you ever watch the Rugrats growing up?
I did.
Did you ever watch Rugrats All Grown Up?
I did not.
So they had a grown up one, and they had a movie based on it, and where they went to like a camp.
I've seen parts of that.
And that, at the very end of that movie, also was another thing that traumatized small Sam.
Oh my gosh. See, for me, One of Us is Lying kind of reminds me of Pretty Little Liars, which I love PLL. Mm-hmm. I tried watching the spinoff. It was okay, but then it cut off after one season. But that is what One of Us is Lying kind of reminds me of. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, it is more of a whodunit. I think that is probably the best way to describe it. But the other recommendation I did have for you guys was The Phantom of the Opera, and I do not mean the musical.
The musical's great.
I love the musical. I am a huge Broadway person. But the book Phantom of the Opera is completely different in a way that you do get more of that Gothic literature style in there, because obviously that's what it was meant for. And I will not try to pronounce this man's last name because I know I will butcher it because it is French. So
Henning? That's the four.
Yeah,
okay.
Gaston is his first name.
Leroux?
Leroux sounds good to me.
So
Gaston Leroux, The Phantom of the Opera. But the book was actually pretty good. There's stuff in it that you, after watching The Phantom of the Opera, the musical, for so long, you're just kind of like, why is this in here? Like, this isn't the story. And then you have to stop and remind yourself, this was the original story.
It's like, what was it, Breakfast at Tiffany's?
Yes. Yeah.
So, hopefully we'll have a treat for you in the way of Ben. Ben's probably more on the scary side of things than we are. He went for a short jaunt in he told scary stories up in Gatlinburg, so I'm hopefully he'll give you a really good scare.
These mountains are old. Older than bones. I don't mean that as an expression. The caves here run so deep and formed so long ago you'll never find a fossil. Before men from across the sea planted their flags in these hills and called them Smoky Mountains, they had a different name. An ancient name. The Cherokee called this place Shakonahay, which means the land of blue mist. See, living here for over a millennia, their people learned a thing or two. They learned the sun sets early in the midst of these ancient hills. They learned when the last dregs of light slid past the peak of Mount Kauai, which we call Klingman's Dome, the mists would creep out of the crevices and hollers where the sun had driven them into hiding. They knew to shut their doors tightly against those mists, to stay safe huddled around a warm fire, pretending not to hear the noises that came from just beyond the tree line. But the only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance, and whether the early colonists of the region didn't know or didn't believe, their fate was always the same. Here and elsewhere, stories echo through the generations of folks who just couldn't wait till morning, who went walking in the mists. Like a man not far from here, in Noland Creek, who sent his daughter out on an errand which kept her out long past sunset. When he went out to search for her, his lantern could scarcely pierce the blanket of fog that washed over the landscape. When the sun rose again and burned away the mists, he and his daughter were found mysteriously dead, scarcely 30 feet apart, but apparently having never found each other. Legend tells that he still wanders those mist-drenched valleys, that you can see him by the light of his lantern, which he carries now even in death, still in search of travelers who made the same mistake as him. Here in Cade's Cove, we have our own ghost lights. They dance in the smoky night air, over graves in ancient places, enticing travelers just another step closer. And another, luring you further into the ancient trees like the light of an anglerfish, until you're so disoriented and so lost in the mist that you abandon any hope of finding your way home. Take the story of a young mother who took her children to Cades Cove late one night on a family vacation. Her 2 children, 5 and 6 respectively, were chasing fireflies in the dying light of the dusk. Mom stopped watching for just 1 minute. Just one, while the mists were creeping in. When she looked up again, where her 2 children had been, she now saw only one. With a sinking feeling that only a parent could ever know, she desperately asked her daughter what had become of her younger brother. The girl simply pointed to the trees, where she could just see her son wandering, following the path of some strange, ghostly light. Running quickly, she took his hand. The boy seemed to be in a daze or stupor. She had to carry him to the car, as he kept turning back in the direction of the light. It was only after she had buckled both her children in safely and gotten about a mile down the road that the boy returned to normal, claiming he had no recollection of the light at all, that he had simply been hunting for fireflies. So before you go wandering in Chiconahay, before you pierce the blanket of mists that bathes this land just after dark, take a lesson from the people who were here before us. Don't go walking alone in the mists. Nobody is ever alone in the mists.
If not, at least we'll get a good laugh at him.
Yep, and if you're ever here late at night on the 3rd floor, please come visit me, because it gets lonely, and I swear sometimes there are ghosts upstairs.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I've had multiple people tell me that the 3rd floor is haunted.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's haunted, but, I mean, I'm also gonna knock on wood, because I have to close up here tonight, but every now and then you do hear some noises, and especially when you're, got all the lights off, you see that one green emergency exit sign, and then other than that, it's just pitch black. So it is a little creepy.
So Launa's gonna become the next Marble Boy.
Gosh, no. Do not say that. Oh, gosh. Well, at least I'll make a lasting impression.
So that wraps it up for our October podcast. Yep. We hope you enjoyed. We certainly scratched our brains, racked our heads. I totally messed those 2 up, but that's okay.
That is totally fine. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching as always, and we will see you guys next month.
Thank you, Ben, for what we're putting in.
Yes, thank you so much.
We appreciate you.
Always.